Hi everyone, every now and again I really enjoy being able to come on and talk to you about something which is an issue that I find amongst my target audience. Now, as you probably know, the group of people who I help the most often are executives and their direct reports within a business. Now, what I want to talk to you about, though, actually has both application for them in terms of their teams, but also for their children. And that often comes about through the conversations I have after I've presented. And I can remember one in particular, which was fairly recent, where I was sat down having lunch, and one particular guy was talking about his son, and he made a direct reference to the fact that he wished his son was more motivated, and this was because it was coming up to exam time, and he was essentially trying to use my psychology head to ask me, very rightly, how can I motivate my son? Well, let me just unpack that for 1 minute and help you understand, if I may, what motivation really is. Now, psychologists have studied this, and we actually believe that there are two different types. One of them is what we call intrinsic or internal motivation, and that means an individual is driven just by the very nature of their recognition of what they want and their pursuit of that as a goal. And there are some people to whom, therefore, motivation comes very naturally, because if they are intrinsically motivated and they know what they want, they will go for it, succeed, go for it, succeed, and that starts up a very natural process for them. They don't need very much input. The alternative, which is not right from wrong or good from bad, okay, is extrinsically motivated. And that young person is always going to need an external impetus or advice or input in order to drive them. Now, if you truly stop and think for a few minutes and reflect as a parent, this is where it can become quite tricky, because if we don't recognize this fast enough, our young people tend to drift. And as they drift and maybe they go into exams and they don't do quite so well, they can then fall by the wayside a bit, because they start getting in the sense that actually they're no good at anything, and that is not true at all. But those people who are intrinsically or internally motivated, essentially they're always going to be okay by themselves, but they do have some areas in which they will struggle. And one of them, without a doubt, is they'll drive for a goal, they'll do quite well, but they may also develop quite a high level of perfectionism, wanting to do things better and better and better. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but as a young person, it can mean that they'll just get a little bit burnt out when it comes to exams, because they won't really quite know what's enough. Now, that means that you're probably going to need to encourage them just to be able to remember to reward themselves after whatever it would be, an actual achievement, an exam that they pass or that they do their very best at. And in fact, that doing their very best is good enough. So they're probably just going to need some help to recognize what is good enough. And an extrinsically motivated young person is probably going to need your help or input in order to be able to set the goals and possibly even find an actual external reward that will drive them. For example, I found that one particular thing that we came across at one point was a conversation which went something along the lines of, okay, what is the one thing that you would most like if you could afford it? And we got back an electric guitar. So what that meant was, whilst we were not going to buy it outright, it was a motivational thing to aim for, because once GCSEs were out of the way, that young person could end up with a significant sum towards that guitar, making it an actual real life possibility. And that tends to drive a great deal of effort, because there's something really great that's going to come at the back of it. So finding that thing means that it's worth a conversation. So open conversations are critical for being able to work out which type of intrinsic motivation you've got. And I think it means a lot if you can encourage your young person to come to you. Talk to me. Let's talk about what you need, what you want, how I can help. But maybe not too in your face. You've got to leave them alone and get on with it to some degree. And obviously the biggest struggle for an extrinsically motivated person is if they actually fail, because achievement itself is not the journey. That's an intrinsic. The motivation is the actual goal or achievement itself, meaning once they've got it. And so, if they don't win the race or they don't get that accolade, that can be quite a blow. So it's important to both to be able to tell them that you're really proud of them for whatever they've managed to do. It's really important that you recognise just because they're up in the room, they're not doing nothing. but with each, it's quite essential if you can work out what you think you've got and then play to the strengths of that type. So I hope that's been useful. Have a bit of a think. And there's also a PDF download on the site at the moment for young people, in specific, those who are actually going to uni or to secondary school, if that helps too. So take care. I'll be in touch. Bye for now.